Planning a multi-day hiking expedition can be extremely daunting. But what if I told you that with the right planning, with the right system, it can be a well-organized and unforgettable adventure? In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know and how I plan a multi-day hike. And if you stay tuned to the end, I'm going to give you a couple of free tools to help you plan your next multi-day walk. Hi everyone, Mowser here. Now, if you've ever planned on going on a longer expedition, on a multi-day walk, but felt overwhelmed by the planning, then this video is for you. This is the first video in a multi-part series, probably be 5 or 6 videos or more, where I'm going to guide you through my entire multi-day hiking planning expedition process. From conception to planning, to gear, to food, to the trip itself, and then to the post-trip cleanup. Over a series of videos, we'll be going through it all. And in today's video, we are running through my sort of conception and planning of the trip process. Let's make your next multi-day trip a trip to remember. And if this is your first trip that you're planning for, then watch closely. We're going to go through it all. Now, if you want to stay up to date with these videos as they get released each week, then don't forget to like and subscribe below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, and you'll get notified as each video comes out. You can also sign up to the newsletter as well right here by scanning that QR code or in the description below, and you'll get to hear updates from the trip that I'm about to head on. But without further ado, let's get straight into it today. Now, first up is a decision to go on a multi-day trip. And the sort of questions you need to ask yourself when you are planning to do something like this is, have you been on anything like this before? Have you just been doing day walks? You need to build up to a long multi-day trip. You probably want to have at least camped overnight before, out on the trail. You probably want to have done at least 2 or 3 nights. If you're going on anything longer than sort of 4 nights, you want to have had experience doing, gradually building up to these longer walks. Now, this one that we're running through here, I am planning is a potentially 10-day multi-day expedition. We're hoping to do it in 9 days, but this one we are allowing for 10 days in untracked wilderness in a remote area of Tasmania. And in the coming videos, you will see us on the walk, where we're going, all that sort of stuff. But today we're just planning, how did I come up with a location? How do I decide on where to go? And how do I go about planning? So if you think you're up to doing a trail, a longer walk that you haven't necessarily been on before, then you need to first look at things like your fitness and your experience. And if you don't have much experience, you want to be going with someone ideally who has. Start with something relatively easily. If you're starting out and you're going on your first big multi-day trip, don't go straight out and do a 6-day trip. Take a shorter one. Go for 1 or 2 nights. You know, you might only walk in an hour or 2, set up camp, then go for a bit of a day walk, then come back to camp, then walk back out. How do you decide on where to go? Well, as I have said in other videos before, I am constantly writing down in my phone, in the notes, I'm writing down ideas for trips. If I see a trip that takes my fancy, I will take a quick note of it. I will copy the link to where I've read it, or take a photo of the magazine I read it in. I will keep track of the trips that I'm keen on doing in a little journal somewhere. That way, when I have some upcoming free time to go on a trip, I can easily go through my little library of trips and think, oh, maybe I'll do this one. So I'm continuously planning future trips, and I'm noting ideas and potential itineraries. And for a trip like this one that I'm planning, I've been hiking for 30 years, but I've been planning this trip for around 6 or 7 years. I've had itineraries in one format or another over the last 6 years, and I just haven't been able to find that time window to head off. 3 hiking companions and me locked in the dates for this trip 12 months ago, set the dates and locked it in. With life these days, busy with kids, we've got to plan these 12 months out. So that was the first stage of the process, was locking in a date. Now, you might be more flexible. You might be able to lock something in a month out. But for a multi-day trip, you want a bit of planning time. How much planning time depends on the person. How organized do you like to be? I like to be extremely organized. So for a trip like this, a 9 or 10 dayer, I will give myself the best part of a year to plan and organize. Then I can take my time. Then after I've come up with our rough date, 12 months ago, we came up with our date, we locked it in. So then I sort of would casually read some notes, go back over my old itineraries that I've made over the years, read some blog posts, do that sort of thing, and gradually come up with a plan for an itinerary. And in the intervening sort of 10 months since, or the 11 months since we set that date in, there's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of messages about the route we're going to take, the itinerary we're going to do, and we've finally sort of locked one in. But we've got about 3 or 4 permutations of that itinerary. We can mix it up, we can sort of play around with it a bit, but when we head off, we'll have a firm itinerary in place, and that will get distributed to all our loved ones back at home before we depart. Now, we do expect bad weather on this trip, so our itinerary takes that into account as well, and it gives us plenty of time to finish the walk in that 10-day period. But if something goes wrong, we've got exit strategies, we've got plans for all that. It's all taken into account in our itinerary. So when you are planning, you should be doing a similar sort of thing. Are there exit routes along the way where you could get out if the weather got really bad, if someone got injured? Are there exit routes off the walk that you can take? And in regards to that, in regards to the location, you need to consider the access as well. So for this trip, it is an end-to-end trip in that it starts at one point and finishes at another. And for this particular trip, that is a little complicated because we finish on a lake. And at that lake, where we finish on the lake, there are no roads. So we're going to need a boat to pick us up at the other end. So in all our planning for this trip, that is crucial in the planning. And also with that finishing point, we've got contingencies there. We've got someone picking us up in a boat. We've got the date set. We can contact them via satellite messenger if things change, if there's a change in plan. But we've also got contingency if they can't get there. If something happened and they couldn't make it, then we've got other options as well. We can wait it out. We can walk around the lake, which will take us a couple of extra days, but it's something we'd have to do if we had to. But we've taken all that into account with our planning. So think about that in your planning. How are you getting to the start of the walk? Do you need someone to give you a lift? Do you need to get a bus? How do you get there? And if you're finishing at a different point, how are you getting home? So with us, we plan this itinerary for months. But if you're heading out on a trail, on a formed track, somewhere like the overland track in Tasmania, then it might be a bit of a simpler process planning. You've got designated campsites each night. You've got tent platforms, that sort of thing. So it is a little easier to plan. But regardless, I worked on the overland track for quite a few years here in Tasmania in Australia, and I would always see people out there disorganized, not really with a plan, not knowing what they're doing, and they'd be short of food, they'd be short of fuel, they wouldn't have the right gear, and obviously they had not planned for the trip correctly. So it's always a good idea to have a good firm itinerary, a good plan of what it's got to entail, especially if you've got to fly to that location, you know, from another state or wherever, or from overseas. Some good planning with the itinerary goes a long way. So once we have our itinerary locked in, then I start looking at my gear. And one question I get asked a lot is, how do you plan for your gear for such a long trip? I work on a few principles. I prioritize light and efficient gear. And on that note, check that video out where I go into the stupid gear I used to take hiking. And I begin planning my gear a few months out. In my spare time, I'll take a few minutes here and there to just arrange my gear on a spreadsheet or on PackWizard or on LighterPack and sort of run through my gear lists. They're a great way, just without getting all your gear out. If you've done it once, you've put the weights in, you've put all the gear into the system, it's worth the time to do it once to get it into that program. But I can sit there, over the last few months I've sat there and played around with different combinations for my pack for this trip, trying to get the best sort of roundup of gear and the lightest, most efficient system I've got, so I'm not carrying too much gear. And on a long trip like this, 9 or 10 days, every ounce counts. Every ounce counts. That rhymes. Nice. And even though I do short trips fairly regularly, even though I've done I can't tell you how many trips I've done of sort of 8, 9, 10 days or more, I'm always going through this same process before each walk. You know, and the anticipation for walks, I'll be going into hiking stores, I'll be looking on YouTube, I'll be looking at websites, just looking at where I might be able to save some weight. Is there any new gear I need? Is there something that's been destroyed on a past trip? And for this trip, I've modified a few pieces of gear, but my core sort of gear is remaining the same. But I will just, over those months, like with the itinerary, I'm doing it in conjunction with the itinerary sometimes. I'm looking at my gear, you know, I just love doing this stuff. And finally, maybe a month out, I'll get to sort of a list of gear that I'm happy with and that I'm thinking is looking pretty good. There'll just be a few last minute little decisions to make before the trip. But once I've got that list down, I can then start to, in the 2 or 3 weeks before the trip, get all the gear out and start a bit of planning and packing. And we're going to go into that in another video. So I guess what I'm saying is just plan your gear out. If you're heading out on a big trip, plan your gear well in advance. Don't leave it to the last minute. And another question I often get asked is, how do I carry enough food for a trip of 9 or 10 days? Now, the most food I have carried was on a 26-day trip. We carried 13 days food, but I know people have carried 20, 23 days food. When you're getting to that level, it can get very, very bare, not a lot of food. But for this trip, I'm working on around 3,000 to 4,000 calories of food a day, which is this many kilojoules. I work on calories. And I'll be working on getting that to about 700 grams total food per day, which is this much in the imperial system. But that's what I'm working on for this trip. Do your research online and you sort of get to know your food needs on these bigger trips as well. So if you haven't done a big trip, that's another good reason to be doing shorter trips. You get an idea of what your hunger needs and what your food and calorific needs are per day. So when you're building up to these big trips, it's good to do those shorter ones first to get an idea of what you need and how to get your menu to a system that you like. And again, I will start planning food normally a month to 6 weeks out. And to do this, in the past I've used spreadsheets, things like that. I've actually developed my own spreadsheet where I can just basically go through my menu for each day, select from a drop down, and it will automatically tell me how many calories I'm carrying each day, how much weight the food is for each day, and it'll give me a total at the end. So I'm sort of hitting those targets that I want to hit, and then I won't go hungry, and I'm not carrying too much or too little for the trip. So I'll start working on that plan, on my menu plan, sort of 6 weeks out, and sort of 4 weeks out, I will start to get a few items from my menu and start to stock up on food. And for this trip, I'm trying to give myself a bit of variety. In past trips, we normally just eat the same stuff every single day. And to be honest, after years of doing that, you get a bit tired of it. There's a lot of options now. There's lots of food available. And I'm trying a few new things for this trip. And again, that will all come on another video where I go into my food, my entire menu for this trip. I'll be running through all of that. And I've found this spreadsheet tool that I use, that I devised myself, to be quite handy in just quickly coming up with the menu and changing it around a bit to get the weights just right so I'm not carrying too much food. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll show you how to download your own copy of that spreadsheet. It's very basic, but it works and I find it useful. So if you want a copy, hang around to the end of the video. Finally, in terms of preparation, what else do I do when I'm preparing for a walk? Well, physical preparation is crucial, especially when you're not hiking as much as you would like to. And generally, I'm always trying to do some form of training, whether it be running. I tend to try and walk everywhere around the city where I live. I try and walk as much as possible, get my 10,000 steps in a day. But getting closer to a walk, I'll try and up the training a bit. I'm doing things like more runs. I'm doing some squats, some weights, things like that, just trying to train up and get ready for the rigors of a big long walk. So these are all things that I am sort of doing in the months leading up to a big trip. Now, once all of this sort of planning process is done, in the few weeks before, in the 2 to 3 weeks before the trip, I'm ready for final trip preparation. So what does this involve? This involves collecting all my gear, getting that into a big tub, getting that ready for packing, doing the same with my food, starting to collate all of that I put it into days worth of food, and we'll run into that on that other video. Also finalizing all the logistics of transport, that sort of thing. And then finally, my final pre-trip routine, which I go through in the day or two before I depart. And we'll be going over all of that in the next few videos. So keep an eye out for those as they drop. We'll also put links to them in the description below after they're published. Now, at the start of the video, I promised a couple of free tools to download to help you plan your next multi-day trip. First up, it's my trip itinerary template. This is a simple Google document that you can copy, and we'll jump into that quickly right now, and I'll just run you through that very quickly. Okay, so we're going to jump into this document. This is one that you can copy. Feel free to copy this to your own Google. I prefer Google Docs and Google Sheets. You might be a Microsoft user. I preferred these. You can open them with Excel, I think, but for the purpose of this, I use Google Docs, so you can feel free to copy it. And to do that, you come into the file, which I will share in the link below. You come in and you click on this, make a copy, and you copy it, and I've copied into my own folder there, for example. Then you make a copy, and it produces one which will save it to your files. So please do that. And we look through the document here. It is just a very basic template. You put your walk name in here. You can call it whatever you like. You can put in the peaks you're climbing. You can put in the background. You can put in map references, so which maps are relevant to the trip. And what I do with this document is not only I plan my walk with it and share it with my other people that are coming on the walk with me, but at the end of the planning stage, right before I go and head out on the trip, as my pre-trip routine, which we'll go into another video, I share this with my wife, with the other guys' wives, with family, and I'd even give one to a ranger or something. If there was one at the start of the trail where I was going, I can give it to anyone. It can be here to provide search and rescue if something bad happened. It's all in here as a ready reference point. And the beauty of this template is that I can be going on an overnight walk, and I do this. I fill this out. I do this for a day walk. Because I've got this template, I can quickly go through and fill it all out, and everyone knows exactly where I'm going to be, and it's just a quick thing to do. I will do this. Last week I went on an overnight walk, filled this out quickly before I headed off, because I knew it all off the top of my head, and I just filled it out, and it worked very, very well. So this will be yours to use if you want, and every time you want to make a new one, you just file, make a copy, and you do that each time. So yep, you go through here. I will show you an example of an itinerary here that we've got. This is from a trip I did last year. So you can see here, this is an itinerary I left at home and that we had for our planning. It shows all the peaks we climbed. It shows or that we plan to climb, which we did anyway. Nice. It's got the background of just a bit of background, you know, more for our reference than anything. We've got our map references, or the maps we are using to plan this trip, and then any online reference notes I've got here. If you're doing that, you've never used Google Sheets or anything like this before, you can select a bit of text by just clicking and dragging, and you can go up to the little icon there and insert a link for a website. So you can do that and have links like this, which lead to other bits where you might want to go and look at these other journeys people did. So you can do that there. I've got notes, which I've been referring to, those couple of books there. We've got dates, we've got the start and finish points, we've got the people that are going, I'd list them here. We've got how we can be contacted, so I would list my Garmin InReach address, my mobile phone. I also list if I sometimes carry a UHF radio, I would put that in there as well, and what channel I would have it set to. I do occasionally carry one of them. And then we've got our itinerary with all the details, what we've sort of come up with, and what we think it'll take us for each day, and that's what we do. Often at the end here, I will also put other potential itineraries as well if I have some alternative plans or extra plans, anything like that. But that is it. That is a basic itinerary, free for you to use, free for you to download. Go for your life. Okay, so we're going to run you through now how to use the Mowser Meal Planner for hiking. It is done in this first iteration in a Google Sheet. So you would have seen wherever you've accessed this video from, it was already either in the spreadsheet or it was off the video, my planning video. So if you haven't done it already, click the link in the planning video below and get access to this spreadsheet. You'll just need to sign up with your email address, and then you will get access to this spreadsheet. The other sort of condition, you will need a Google account to access this and make a copy of your own, because that's what I've done it in. I've made it in Google Sheets. So you just need a Google account to make a copy and make it your own. So what we will do here is look at the screen which we've brought up right here. I have just clicked on the link and it brings this up in the first instance under my Google account. And what you'll want to do in order to be able to edit this sheet and make it your own, you need to first go up here to File on the screen and click Make a Copy, and that will copy it to your drive. So call it whatever you like. I can call it Mowser's Marvelous Meals or something. So do that. Copy it to your drive, make a copy, and now that would be copied into your drive and you are away and ready to edit this sheet. So we'll do a quick run through here. It is set up to give you, as you go through and plan your meals, the total weight for the trip, the total calories, the calories per day, and the food per day. If you prefer kilojoules, then I guess you could convert it manually by just typing in the calories per day into Google, just to this many calories, 2 kilojoules. The main thing you want to do though is enter here in this blue cell. It's all here as well, instructions how to use it, and also only enter text into the blue cells on this sheet. So we'd enter our trip length. For me this time it's 9 days, and I would enter that in. I can enter any relevant notes for this trip here, going on a good trip, whatever I want to put there. Then I would manually calculate how many breakfasts, lunches and dinners I need. I know for this trip I need 8 breakfasts, 9 lunches and 8 dinners. I've figured that out, but that's just more for my reference more than anything. Just, it doesn't do anything with calculations. It's just there to inform me as to how many I sort of need to plan for. Then we have the main sheet here. You don't need to touch any of these white cells. They will auto calculate as you progress through the sheet. You don't need to touch these cells here. They will progress as well. All you need to type into in this section of it is in your notes here. If you've got any notes for those particular days, you'll see here day 1 is indicated there. As we scroll down, you've got day 2 and so on, and this goes up to 10 days, this system, because I built it for myself, and that's sort of the maximum time trip I go on at the moment. If you wanted to do more, then you'd probably need to go in and start changing all the formulas and stuff in this sheet. I do plan to release this in a better form at some stage, hopefully sooner than later, but we'll let you know when that occurs. So subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can do that up here on the top right by clicking on that link. Now, how do you populate this sheet? Well, first of all, you need to enter in your meals of choice. And to do that, you go down to the bottom of the screen here. You've got the meal planner, which is what we're on, and meal selection is in here. And this is where you input all your data for your food. So for example, I've already pre-populated what I have in there. I will add more stuff when I find it, but you can see here it's got my meal name. So I would just type in my meal name to continue on with this. I would go radix chocolate if I had my own packet, another meal in front of me, I wanted to add into the sheet, I would go down here and I could call it random breakfast meal. And I'll say it's got 100 grams with 100 calories. That's what it says on the packet. So I've looked at that. Then I can go back to my meal planner, to the breakfast section. So I've entered that here under breakfasts. And then when I go in there, you can see in the drop down, which I click, that random breakfast meal is there. It doesn't show weight or calories yet because I need to enter in how many of those random breakfast meals I'm going to have today on day one. Well, I'd normally just have one. So I'd enter that in and you can see there that it says entered the weight and the calories all in grams, and it started to give me totals up here as well. I will fix that so it doesn't populate as many decimal places, but that is sort of the basic gist of how that bit works. If I were to go back into here, I can go along and I can do the same for lunches. I can do the same for dinners. And I can keep doing it all the way along to my snacks and to my drinks. So I can enter in any food I want. As long as you do it in these columns, it'll populate into the spreadsheet. Now, if you are having something for multiple meals, say you're having miso soup, which we've got here under drinks, if you were having that as a snack as well, then what I would do there, if you wanted to get really crazy, I'd just select those cells, then I would copy them. So you can right click and click copy, or you can Command C if you're on a Mac, or Control C if you're on a Windows computer, I think is what it is. And you can do Control V or paste, put it in there, and then it'll show up in both menus. So then we go back to the meal planner and we can start building our meals. I've given you multiple options for each meal in case you have other stuff. But generally what I would do, I would go here, I'll add in some snacks for the day. I might have 2 of them that day. I might have one of these as well. And I've got 2 snack sections. So I generally have snacks in the morning before lunch and then between lunch and dinner while I'm on the track. So I've just created 2 snack sections. So I might have 2 of them there, and then I'll do my snacks together. So I'll do them now here. Might have a Snickers and I might have a Cliff Bar. So you just keep doing this as you go. For lunch, I've got plenty of options there. Normally I would have something like that. I would have a wrap or 2. So I might have 2 wraps. I'll just normally have 1 serve of that stuff and so on. So I just keep entering all this data in. I might have some peanut butter in a wrap and I might have some cheese, and I haven't entered the quantities in. So if it's saying 0, if you're wondering why, you do need to remember to put the quantities in or it won't give you an accurate number, obviously. Then dinner, I might just have a lamb casserole that day, one of them, and you just build up each day's meals. I've got some drinks I like to have every day as well. I put the drinks on the one section. They're not in chronological order of the day's events, so I'll just fill it all in here. I'd normally have a coffee in the morning. I'd have my element electrolytes as well, and then I would also have a hot chocolate most days, and I also have a miso soup most days. And you can see there I've pretty much populated that day's food. So far the cells here at the top of that day next to the day number, which is here, I've got 734 grams of food for 2600 calories of energy, so we call it energy. And then I could move on to day 2, day 3. If you're not doing a 3-day, if you're only going for 2 days, just fill out the 2 days and it still calculates it accordingly. So if I was just doing it for 1 day, there you can see there I have got all of that populated. So then you've got all your day's food. You can see here the total calories for the day and the total weight in grams for the day. And then if I go up here, you can see there it is given my total calories for the trip, which is 1 day, so that will be the same. Then it's also given me my weight per day of food. It's given me my total weight of food, and it also does have this row here of the total weight in imperial system. If you're from the United States, that is in pounds there for you. Sorry, I never deal in the imperial system and I just am not familiar with it. I've tried to put it in there for you so you've got a bit of an idea of what's going on with weights. So look, once I develop this better, I will have an imperial system and a metric system to cater for everyone, but at the moment that's the best I can do. But it's your spreadsheet, so if you download it, feel free to play around with it and make it your own. I find it really good for planning my meals. So if I go and start doing, a couple of other things here, you can see as I do this, and just remember to change how many days you're going for. If you're going for more than 1 day or 2 days, you just need to populate that to get those totals correct at the top. Yes, that's a basic rundown. The only other thing I wanted to show you was over here on the bottom in the meal selection part, if the package on the food that you're looking at only has the value in kilojoules, which some tend to do, then you can come up here and just enter in the value. If it's 737 kilojoules, plug that in there and it will tell you how many calories are in here, so you can enter it into the data down here. That's just there. Then when you're done, you can just delete it, or you can leave it there, whatever you want to do. So just plug in whatever 1200 kilojoules is 286 calories. So that is there as well to make it easier to calculate the calories. I prefer to calculate things in calories because everything I've ever read when it's talking about daily usage of food while you're on the trail, it's always saying in calories. I try to work on 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day. So that is sort of why I've built this tool. I've been doing stuff like this in a spreadsheet for over 20 years, planning food for trips, but this is the first time I've made a tool like this. So it's brand new. See what you think, and hopefully you find it helpful. Leave comments below if you want any improvements, anything like that at all. And we may develop it into an app. Is this something you would find useful as an app? Is it something you would pay a small amount for, a nominal fee for, either per month or per year or one-off? I don't know. But if I'm going to develop this into an app, it'll probably have to have a paid component. Let me know what you think. Did you find it useful? Did you not use it at all? Would you just prefer to just wing it and chuck your food in a bag and on your way? No worries at all. Let me know what you think. Hope you enjoy it. And if you have got this spreadsheet, it means you signed up via the link and that you've entered in your email, and I'll be able to keep you updated of any updates to this or if any new versions come out. Till then, enjoy it, get out on the trail, have a good meal, and I will talk to you another time. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll see you soon.